We believe that being a defender requires more than building shooting skills on a range. It's also a development of the heart, mind, body, and spirit. Join us as we explore what it truly means to be a defender in your training and in your everyday life. Welcome to Defenders Live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Defenders Live. I am your host, Laura Thorson. I'm so glad to be with you again on a Wednesday evening. We're going to have a good time tonight. I can feel it in the air, day before Thanksgiving. So let's make it count, shall we? So tonight we have Chris Cerino on the show. Chris has spent 3 decades in law enforcement and firearms training, and also was a competitor on the History Channel's Top Shot series. He's also a writer and appears on Gun Talk TV's First Person Defender and Guns and Gear. There's lots to get into. We'll get into that in a little bit later. We'll be talking to him about preparing for the unexpected. Is that possible? Preparing for the unexpected in self-defense, but also in other areas throughout your life. As you know, sometimes I take the conversation in interesting places, and that might be the case tonight. So we'll see how that goes. Stay tuned and we'll find out. But before we get to Chris, I have a few announcements and a really quick tidbit of the week that I want to share with you. So first, just a reminder, if you're new or watching this as a replay, I want to say welcome. We're so glad that you're here. For those of you that are diehards that tune in every week, you know the drill. Please drop in the comments where you're watching from. I always want to hear from you guys. As a reminder, we will be having a live Q&A at the end of the broadcast. If you guys have any questions for Chris along the way, if something pops in your head, just put it in the comments and we'll gather those at the end of the show. All right. And also one quick announcement too, the Defenders Live Facebook group. A lot of you guys are a part of that, and I so appreciate that. But the reach on that group is not the greatest. So if you don't want to miss any notifications about upcoming shows, please be sure to go to defenders-live.com. At the bottom of the homepage, you can put your email address in there, and I'll be sure to send you an email about upcoming shows so you don't miss out on anything. Also, we have the founder of Defenders USA back this week. Adam Winch is back from training with Apache Solutions. Where were you, Adam? North Carolina, South Carolina?
Yadkinville, North Carolina.
Okay, North Carolina. So he just got back from like a rigorous. What are you doing, Adam? Put it in the mic so people can hear it. Have you guys ever heard that sound before? If you've ever trained with Adam Winch, you may have heard that sound before, and you might get the inside joke. Maybe, maybe not. But anyway, if you see Adam pop on the screen from time to time, don't be alarmed. That's just what he does. He pops in, pops out, whatever. He might have commentary too. You just never know. But anyway, I'm glad to have him back behind the scenes helping me because I need all the help that I can get. Anyway, that screaming goat, I swear. Okay, now I want to get into a quick tidbit of the week. I mean, I wouldn't say it's not heavy, but it might not be exactly what you had in mind for Defenders Live, but that's okay. I feel like I want to share it. So here we go. Isn't it funny that the tidbit of the week this week is called Thankful? Tomorrow is Thanksgiving. But this might not be what you had in mind, what you think this might be. So thankful is a word that gets thrown around a lot, especially this time of year. And we think about gratitude journals, maybe not so much, but some people might think of gratitude journals and warm, fuzzy feelings when we usually go into what we're thankful for this time of year. Usually it's friends and family and food, right? When we think about being thankful. But I'd like to offer something a little bit different for you guys to consider that maybe you haven't considered before. Have you ever thought about giving thanks for the things that you aren't happy with in your life? Have you ever consciously been grateful for all of the rotten stuff that you've gone through? All the people that have done you wrong, or all the struggles that you're currently going through? It's really hard to give thanks during those times. And our first instinct isn't even to think about that when we think about being thankful at all, right? But just stick with me here, okay? I'm going to get maybe a little preachy on you, not too bad. But the Bible actually says to give thanks for all things. All things. It doesn't say just the good things or some things. It says all things. Just one example is in First Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 16 and 17, where it says, "Rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." Give thanks in all circumstances? Really? How many times have we only given thanks for the good things in our lives or for the happy, comfortable, easy things that we want to think about? These are the things that we all think about this time of year. And I'm not saying we shouldn't absolutely give thanks for those. But here's a challenge for you. What if the no good, rotten stuff that happens to us also might happen for us? Have you ever looked back on your life and actually thought to yourself, wow, I would not be who I am today if if that hadn't happened. If I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be who I am today. Would you be who you are today without the struggle and the sacrifice and the unexpected curveballs? What if you could take those struggles and bad times and use them for good? What if your story could be a blessing to others? Would you be thankful for that? I believe that the really bad stuff makes the good stuff that much more sweet. So tell me what you think. Tell me in the comments what you think about that. I know it might not be the warm, fuzzy thankfulness that we all think about during Thanksgiving. And we should have a lot of that too, right? But tonight, I'm thankful for all things in my life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I'm not perfect, and neither is the world. And my only hope is to trust He who strengthens me. And in all seasons of my life, I will give thanks, even when it's really hard to do. So, just something to think about as we head into the holiday season. And that's my tidbit of the week on what it means to be thankful. So, take that with a grain of salt. And I'm curious to hear what your comments are and what you think about that tonight. So let's get into what you guys tuned in for, the interview with Chris Cerino. Chris has spent 30 years in law enforcement and training, a police officer, SWAT operator, firearms instructor, federal agent, and international level trainer. I almost said international traveler. Chris has been there and done that. He is a perpetual student in the areas of firearms training and use of force. Chris's weapons proficiency really took off with his time at the Federal Air Marshal Service. As an instructor, great skills with a handgun are meaningless, he says, if you can't communicate what it is that makes you successful. The question is, do you like it because you can make it work? Or do you like it because you can get others to make it work? The opportunity to be on the History Channel's Top Shot was what catapulted Chris into the firearms industry and a career in writing, gun TV, and competition. It was after that that he developed his own training company, Cerino Training Group. He has trained everyone from lunch ladies carrying arms in schools to military and law enforcement's top tier elements. Having been a trainer, coordinator, and student, Chris has a wide range of experience that comes from practical application as an educator, operator, and professional competitor. Years of diagnosing successes and failures with multiple weapon platforms is what makes Chris's training effective. It says shooting thousands of rounds. Watching and training thousands of shooters, Chris doesn't just show you drills or teach you to shoot. He teaches you to teach yourself. His pragmatic approach to training and application of skill has been life-changing and life-saving for students worldwide. So let's welcome Chris Cerino onto the show. Hi, Chris. Oh, I can't hear you. Let me unmute you. There you go.
Hello. It's almost like we had talked before this, because everything you spoke about the good times and the bad times and giving thanks for even the bad things that happen in life, Uh, it's so true. All of what you said is true, Laura. I see that obviously there's things that pop up on the bottom, people that are watching and making comments already. I see familiar names and I like what people are saying, and it's good to see that people are out there watching.
Yeah, I thought that thankfulness tidbit would probably tie in what we're about to talk about, as well as really the whole timing of it is perfect. I mean, when you think about it, but and I just thought it was just something I wanted to say. I mean, you can take it or leave it. It's just like everything else on the internet, right?
Absolutely. They don't call it the error net for nothing.
Definitely. So I titled this show Preparing for the Unexpected. And so I want to go into practical application of this, right? From a self-defense standpoint. I think that's important given your background. Obviously, we want to do that. But I do also want to go a little bit deeper and talk about some of the unexpected events that have happened in your life and what you've learned from them as well. Because I think that trying to be prepared as we can be for unexpected events doesn't always just apply to self-defense. And with our show Defenders Live, we talk about a lot of stuff more than just gun stuff all the time. So but let's start with I can see that smirk on your face.
I'm not a gun guy, so it's okay.
I know, this is what's so funny. We were talking yesterday, I think it was, and that was one of the first things that came out of your mouth. So let's get into that. Let's talk about that, about how your journey into law enforcement. So you were in law enforcement for 30 years, yet you don't call yourself a gun guy. And you said, what was it like, just happenstance somehow that you ended up in law enforcement?
Yeah, I was too dumb to be what I really wanted to be. And ultimately, the counselor said, if you go into a criminal justice studies, you don't have to take math. You can take language for 4 semesters and a logic class. And I thought, well, that'll be fantastic. You can come in. It's okay. Come and sit. my, my friend is here, and but anyways, it just worked out that way. And honestly, I realized that I was very interested in criminal justice studies, and I was good at it. And then when I became a park ranger, law enforcement ranger in Glacier National Park, Montana. You can sit over there. I was really good at it, and I got good reviews, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people. I enjoyed the work, and it had nothing to do with the power trip of wearing a badge or a gun or being a police officer or a law enforcement officer. But I was just good at it, and it just snowballed from there, and it just kept going forward. And of course, I was never perfect. So if I
Nobody
hadn't
is.
been given all kinds of breaks and been treated really well by officers I had encountered as a youth, would have never happened.
So tell me then that progression. So you started off in Glacier, then you ended up as a Federal Air Marshal. Was that towards the end of your career then?
That was 2/3 in. I became air marshal. I was a police officer. I was content to be so. I was working for a good sized city. I was a SWAT officer and a commander of a SWAT team, a field training officer. I was doing everything I wanted to do. But 9/11 happened, and I thought that maybe I could do more. I mean, number one, I'm not going to lie to you. I thought, well, I can make more money and I can do something more for the world, for the
Mhm.
country. And I wasn't afraid of going up against terrorists or doing anything like that. But I thought, you know what, if I can make it, that's what I should do. So I applied, and ultimately, out of I don't know how many million they had applied, uh, I I was one of many thousands that got picked.
So what do you think made you so good at that work if that wasn't something that you'd always wanted to do?
Well, because I'm human. I understand humanity. I understand that people make bad decisions all the time. I understand that we all do things that we wish we could take back. We all get involved in things that maybe aren't the best for our future. It's what you do after you have that come to Jesus with, whoever it is, the law enforcement officer, the counselor, whoever it is that says, hey, this is a bad choice. Are you going to learn from it, or are you going to move forward?
So would you say then that, I mean, what I'm hearing there is compassion. Would you say that
Well,
that is a trait that you had that made you good at your job?
I had this thing when I used to interview new law enforcement officers, because I used to work on the panel when we'd hire new cops, and I would ask them about the 3 C's. I would say, I have 3 C's: courage, common sense, and compassion. Tell
Hmm.
me what you know about each. And you said compassion, so there it is. I mean, obviously, courage is number one. Not number one, really. None of them are number one. Courage is important because you have to be unafraid to move forward in the face of fear. Everybody gets scared. I mean, I've been so scared I was shaking, but I always moved forward and did what was right. Common sense means, can you do what's right at the moment? Life is not black and white. You can't just read it in the book and say it is so. Law is law, but there are fudge factors, and there's a thing called discretion. And then of course, there's compassion. Do you have compassion for the people you're dealing with? Because if you don't have any compassion, if you can't say, and I was just having this discussion with my friend earlier tonight, I said, listen, I at the time I had never been divorced. I had never been through a messy divorce with small children, infidelity, all kinds of things like that. But I had to deal with people who are going through that, and of course emotions are high.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and they'd say, "Well, you don't know what it's like." And I would say, "You're right. I have absolutely no idea what it's like, and I hope I never do. But what I'm trying to do is get us through this evening so that everyone can be safe and we can move forward."
Hmm. That's good because those, I mean, I guess those don't come, courage, I guess, comes pretty forefront in my mind when I think of traits for law enforcement, but
It's
that's
not
really
easy.
good. I imagine
Courage
it's not easy.
Courage isn't easy. We're all afraid. We're all afraid of all kinds of things. I mean, it's okay to be afraid, but you can't be scared to continue forward.
Mhm. See,
I
there he
see
is.
Adam's ready to
I
chime
told
in.
you
Come
he'd
on,
just
buddy.
pop on the screen with his
So
dog.
so I got to jump in here, right? Uh, Chris, you just said something I think is so important, right? When it comes to law enforcement, if you don't have compassion, right? I mean, there but the grace of God go I, as I saw it in my work. So oftentimes, as I'm literally arresting somebody or dealing with somebody's very worst day, the most horrible things you can think of is I sat there time and time again and just literally thought, there but the grace of God go I. I could be the one those handcuffs. I could be the one locked up. I could be the one holding my dead child. I could be, I could be in this dead end, whatever marital situation, whatever it
Life,
is.
dead end life. Think
Yeah,
about it. It's
dead.
life, buddy.
Yeah, dead in life. And if you don't have compassion as a police officer, it is a dead end life. I would argue the same thing is true as the gun carrier, or really the defender of life. If you can't have compassion, then this is all just fun and games and all about the raw. And it really has to come down to the compassion of those that you might be protecting and others. And if you don't have that, then that's the missing component, I think, of gun training.
Well, you absolutely have to have heart. I mean, the reason that you want to be a defender is because you have heart. I knew, listen, I didn't know anything early on, but now I can trace back to when I was in school, and we had what we used to call retarded kids, mental disabilities. I mean, everybody, back in the day, they're always retarded. We sent them to the facility that dealt with mental retardation. And we had those kids in school, and I would see kids pick on them, and it would break my heart It would break my heart to see someone who was less fortunate. It would break my heart to see someone who was unable to stand up for themselves. And although I never in a million years envisioned myself as a police officer, as a protector of others, because I was scared of everything. I was scared of my own shadow. I was scared of anything. I believe that's inside of me. That was inside of me all those years. And an officer told me a long time ago, right before he got relieved of his duties, because we had something going on. Guy pulled me aside. He said, "Hey, listen, I'm probably not going to be here tomorrow, but I want to let you know that you cannot build cops. You either are one or you aren't one, and you are one. You keep moving forward. Don't worry about what happens to me tomorrow. Don't worry about the fact that I'm not going to be here, but you are a cop. You do a good job. You are a good person." And I always thought about that. And I thought, you know what? It's so true, because you can teach a monkey to run radar. You can teach a monkey to handle, ridiculous calls. But a person with a heart has to handle the actual duties of being a law enforcement officer and dealing with the discretion in the black and white. Did that catch everybody off guard? You done talking or
No.
I know my screen froze up. Anyways, I wanted to drop in just because I was so grateful that you were talking about compassion. That is such a needed component, not just in the law enforcement world, but in everything we do, right? By the mere fact that we're considering ourselves defenders, or we own guns, or we carry guns in defense of life, that's possibly for the taking of life. And there needs to be a deep sense of compassion for those surrounding what we may do with a gun, and such a needed component. And I was so grateful you brought that up. So I'll jump back out, but thank you for bringing that up.
No, stay with us, because there's I carry a gun not for myself.
Yeah.
Now, I refuse to be a victim, and I will do everything in my power to not use a firearm to be safe. I will do everything in my power to not use a firearm. I refuse to be a victim. But probably most important in my life is that I refuse to allow others around me to be victims. I will not sit and watch bad things happen, because I don't care how wallflower or fly on the wall I am, and I am not even involved in the situation. Now, this is a law enforcement thing, and I don't expect anybody that's watching that is just a concealed carry permit holder who's worried about themselves and their family to think like this. But I refuse to sit and watch someone else be victimized or something horrible happen to them, because ultimately I am the one who has to go home at that night and say, wow, thank God I'm okay. And remember that someone else is not.
So that's so interesting, right? I mean, this society is literally built on the defense of all that's good, and the protection of all that's good, and really that oftentimes is somebody other than ourselves, and to think that, okay, I'm only going to carry a gun in defense of myself, or I'm only going to train in jujitsu, or think about these things in defense of myself, is not only a one-dimensional thought process, but I think also from a defensive aspect, also selfish, or if not selfish, self-focused. And to me, it's kind of the same thing, that gun, I can defend myself very often without a gun, right? But Chris, you've had an immense amount of training, and I have too. And so we know that usually when the gun comes out, it's because a failure has happened somewhere, right? But really, that gun more often than not is carried in defense of others. And if you don't have that sense that others are literally the most important thing in the world, right? We are not, right? You as the gun carrier, you're not the most important thing in the world. Everybody else around you is. I'm not the most important person in the world. Everybody else around me is. So therefore, oftentimes it's really for others. And even if it's in defense of myself, it's really for the protection for my kids, for my wife, for my family. And I saw that with you when I got to come spend time with you in Louisiana. And it stuck it was very obvious. And then when you brought it up here, I just had to jump in.
Well, no, I think it's important that people understand that, the gun, everybody thinks the gun's for you.
Yeah.
Well, a good person, a courageous, compassionate, and common sense person knows that it is for the greater good of mankind, everyone else around them. I don't know what the quote is. Listen, I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person, and I'm not religious, and I can't recite Bible verses or anything like that. But there is no greater love hath a man than to lay his life down for another. Am
Yeah.
I correct? Something like
You've
that.
got the idea.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, isn't that what we do? I mean, I would kill for good people. I would also die for good people. I would do what needs to get done. I would hope that I don't. I mean, I would like to live another day. I mean, run away and live to fight another day. But some days you just can't run away.
That could be
You
a
have
song.
you have to stay there.
Well, I'm so glad to have you, Laura.
Laura.
Congratulations on having such an incredible person on your show.
I'm incredibly blessed with the life I lead. I'm incredibly blessed to touch as many people as I do, and I don't mean that in an inappropriate way. I know you guys are thinking, "Oh, I'm talking salad." I always think about how many people I touch, and when I say that, everybody cringes.
I didn't even think of it that way.
So, Laura, what are you thinking about tonight? I mean, we talked about some stuff the other day, and what's next on your agenda? What are you thinking?
Oh, I've got a long list here. So where I was going to go with that about your law enforcement journey is a couple of places. I want to get into your Top Shot experience. I think that there's some things I want to ask you about that. But I'm curious to know if you say, I'm not a gun guy, and I think I know the answer now based on what you just said, but you said, I'm not a gun guy. I never really was a gun guy, but you are a firearms trainer and you have been for a very long time. So it must not be about the gun. Why did you become
No.
a firearms trainer?
I was good at it. It's like anything else I've done, just like becoming a police officer. I was good at it, so I stayed with it. And then someone gave me an opportunity to become an instructor, and I was kind of good at it, and people would say, "Hey, I enjoy working with you. I enjoy training with you." And I didn't know anything. Listen, I didn't know anything until, halfway through my career. I mean, how many people have you seen? They call themselves instructors and they say, I don't know what she's doing. I don't know, honey, you're going to have to shoot up here if you want to hit it down here. Or, honey, you're going to have to bring your strong foot back. I mean, they're instructors, and that person at that time may experience results or may experience the care that they're giving them. But I didn't really get good until I realized why I was good and what made me good at it. And so it became a passion. And then it was like, hey, do you want to learn how to run a submachine gun? Do you want to be an instructor for this? Do you want to be an instructor for that? So I got the certifications, but then I also made them hobbies of mine and paths that I wanted to pursue, because an instructor certification didn't mean anything to me. It was all about what I could do for someone else.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to let you guys know that we're halfway through the hour right now, and there's a good chance already we're going to go over the hour. So just be prepared for that, even if you have to come back and watch the rest later. I'm not going to go long for the sake of it, but I'm not going to cut it short just for time either. So just letting you guys know in advance. So Top Shot, tell me, how does this work? How did you get on Top Shot? And I've got more questions after that, but I'm sure that's a story in and of itself.
Well, I was good. Everybody knew I was good. They said, "Man, you seem like you can just do anything." And people kept sending me that damn email that said, "Hey, History Channel's looking for America's greatest marksman," or whatever it was, America's top shot. And it said, "If you have a big personality and you have skills, we're looking for you."
It
And they
really
kept
said that, big
sending me.
personality, huh?
Yeah, I don't have much personality, but I try. Anyways, they kept sending it to me. And so finally, after, I don't know how long, I sat down at my desk one day and I read it, and it said all I had to do was submit a paragraph and a photograph, why I should be on Top Shot, what made me qualified for it, and send a picture. Because of course they're looking for good-looking guys like me. I mean, I used to, I used to be good looking. I'm not terrible, but I used to be a good looking guy. So I sent a picture and I sent a paragraph and basically said, hey, listen, I can do anything you ask me to do. I'm unafraid. I can charge forward. And that first season, they only had like 6,000 something applicants. They
Oh.
and so that was a huge deal. I guess that was probably a big thing. And I got in. You know, they called me. They took 50 people. They took 50 of us to LA, gave us a tryout. We had to go through psychological. We had to go through medical. We had to go through an interview process with the producers. And of course, we had to do a shooting test. So, you know, and I did well enough. And as many great shooters who were there, those folks all backed out because they could see it as a detriment to their career, of course. And I, of course, had nothing to lose. I was just a trainer for the state of Ohio.
Hmm. Was there anything during the show? As I'm always curious what happens behind the scenes. Was there anything that was unexpected with that show that you didn't anticipate, or the way it was shot, or anything like that?
Not particularly. I mean, of
Oh,
course, the people that interview you when you're sitting in those little, they call them on the fly interviews where they set you down outside and they got the little thing
yeah.
and say, hey, come on outside, throw your shirt on. Um, they would try to ask you questions about somebody or something that you were obviously maybe inflamed about or something you were enamored about. And
Oh, yeah.
I would
Well, they
just,
got to make a good show, right?
well, and I would say, no, I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. And they'd keep going. And finally, I would say, here's what I have to say. And every other word would be an F bomb or some expletive. And I would be like, and there you have it, folks, because they couldn't cut
Uh,
that because it would be so messed up. They couldn't use it on History Channel. And I'd say, now quit asking me the damn question.
oh, that was smart. That was smart. I like that. And what
Yeah. I
was
mean,
your
I
go
have
ahead.
feelings. We all have feelings. We all say stupid stuff, but we don't necessarily want it broadcast on national TV.
Right. I always wonder whenever I watch shows like that, and then the way they're edited, obviously this is like, in a totally different location where they're giving their commentary or and all of that. And I wonder how all of that like fit together. So that's
If you want to
interesting.
hear a funny one, I'll give it to you straight.
Yeah.
So we had to shoot the faces of the dice and break out the little glass pieces, and then the thing would close. And we were picking teams, and then they picked out who was going to be the team captains. Well, Kelly Bashan had been to my house. We had trained him. We had treated him like family. We had done all this stuff. Well, Kelly gets picked as one of the team leaders, and the first person he picks is Brian Zins. Now, I love Brian Zins. Brian Zins is a great friend of mine. He's an 11-time world champion or national champion for Bullseye. And then the first person on the next team picks me. And I'm thinking, you little bastard, you didn't pick me. So I told Brian Zins, I said, Brian, I'm going to kick your ass. And we're going to take the
Mhm.
hardest one because it was like the 6 dots. We had 6 shots in the gun. We had 6 dots, or maybe it was 5. I don't know what it was. But anyways, it was the hardest one. And Brian said, hey, man, have at it. I'd be pissed off if I was you too, because we all knew how we felt. And so we shot that series, and it was all tied up until the end. And I went on to smoke Brian. And I slammed the revolver down. I turned around and I flicked off the whole team. And
Oh
I
my
told
gosh.
Kelly, F you.
Oh my gosh.
I
Was
said,
that obviously wasn't on TV, right?
no, and I can't believe they didn't show it. They didn't blink it out. They didn't blur it or nothing. And I went, F you. And everybody looked at me like, oh, but I was
Oh.
so jacked up and I was so pissed off. And it was just so funny. And I meant nothing to everyone else. And it was so funny because Brian was like, dude, you kicked my ass. And that was amazing. And I said, I'm sorry. I was just so charged up because I felt so betrayed. Like stuff like that, they didn't show on there. And of course, Kelly and I are still friends. And
Yeah.
we've been friends ever since All Stars was over. But man, that set the tone during All Stars and stuff like that. You have to remember that not only do they show stuff that's unreasonable and irrational on Top Shot, but they also hid stuff that they thought they should. And at least that moment, they did hide that. And I thought that was really cool. And I was, of course, very, very impressed at the fact that History Channel chose not to make me look like an idiot. Which I was at that moment, but hey, we all get charged up. Well, there you have a cool inside story that no one has ever heard.
And you heard it here first.
On Defenders Live.
Okay. All right. So then now I'm not sure the order of events. It doesn't really matter. But so tell me then about Gun Talk TV. You said that is like your dream job. Is that what you told me?
Yeah, it's funny because
what do you get to do there?
I started working for Gun Talk. I was on First Person Defender, which Adam was in as a trainer. So Adam knows what it's like. I was on that 12 or 13 seasons ago. I was on the very first season with my ex-wife as a representative for Crimson Trace. They needed someone. They asked us to go on it. We did it. Tom and Ryan really liked us. And Tom started using me for training tips and just on-camera talent. And it was really cool. So a couple of weeks a year, I'd come down to Louisiana and I would do that stuff. And I did it for about 10 years.
Wow.
And when I got divorced, Ryan called me and said, "Hey, man, you always said you were going to move south if you got divorced. So what are you doing?" And I said, "Dude, you know I'm going south." And he said, "Well, why don't you come here and we want to hire you and run Range Ready. And you can be a camera guy and the director of training and director of, training content." And so I've been doing that for 2 years, starting this weekend, because I moved here full time 2 days after Thanksgiving.
Wow. Now tell everybody what Range Ready is.
So Range Ready is a portion of Gun Talk Media. So Gun Talk Media is the Gun Talk radio show, First Person Defender, Guns and Gear, which is on Outdoor Channel, Sportsman's Channel. We're on Wednesday night at the range. And we do a bunch of other things. We do some writing and we do some blogging and things like that. But Range Ready Studios was the fact that we had moved from the original offices down in Mandeville, Louisiana, which was in the city. And we bought 10 acres and an old slaughterhouse. And well, Ryan did it all. But Ryan bought this place that, against our better judgment, we told not to, because it was a pile of crap. And we have these beautiful studios now. We have a classroom. We have offices. We do everything. We're one-stop shopping. And he expects me to run, a class, maybe 2 a month. So in the first 6 months of this year, excluding January, of course, we have 8 classes running. And of course, I run those classes. It's stuff that I brought from Cerino Training Group in my years as a trainer, SWAT operator, and, Air Marshal and lead trainer for the Air Marshals, things like that. And it's been absolutely amazing. I thought that I could never truly have an amazing job, but I do. I work way more than I want to. But it's all good because I don't worry about it at all.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you found. I mean, I think you wouldn't be in law enforcement for 30 years if you didn't enjoy it to some degree. So, what a cool life to live, right? I mean, pretty amazing stuff. The things that you've got to do. So,
well, I'm very fortunate. Very fortunate.
Yeah. That's so cool. I mean, that's a lot of stuff just right out of the gate to talk about. I mean, the whole show could just be about that stuff, but I do want to get into a little bit more practical application for the viewers, because the show was talking about, preparing for the unexpected, which is what defenders should be doing. And so because you do have such an extensive background, I just wanted to pick your brain on a few things before we moved on. First of all, could you describe, when we were on the call yesterday, you said something about you're not into the flavor of the day, which I thought was interesting. And so I wonder, what do you mean by that? And how would you describe your style, your training style when you're working with people?
Well, preparing for the unexpected, number one, is my entire life. I have not planned like that. I didn't plan for that. Preparing for the unexpected has been my entire life. I have not expected to do anything I was doing and am doing right now, which means you have to be flexible. And that also means nothing ventured, nothing gained. And chance favors the prepared, as well as the fact that without risk, there can be no reward.
That's a lot in one paragraph.
I know, right? It's ridiculous.
Adam, are you typing those quotables out? Are you typing them? Oh, I can see him smiling in the background.
My grandma always said, you can poop under the snow, but in the springtime, everyone's going to know. Oh, shoot. So here we are. So I hate the flavor of the day stuff. And that's why I've never really snowballed as a trainer on the circuit, amongst civilians, because everybody that calls and says, hey, I see you got this pistol one. Do you have an advanced? Everything I do is advanced. There's nothing I do that's not advanced. There's nothing I do that's not basic. Because
did you actually put that in the comments? Jeez, I'm sorry, Chris, to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Listen, there's nothing advanced. There's no advanced training, but everything I do is advanced, because if you can't do what I'm asking you to do, then you suck. And you need to think about what it is you're trying to do, because a lot of people fancy themselves as shooters. There is no easier way to shoot. You can put a red dot on your pistol, but if you still can't press a trigger and you still anticipate and are afraid of the gun going off, then you're not going to shoot better with a red dot, even though a red dot on a very competent shooter's pistol will make you absolutely shoot better once you get used to shooting a red dot, providing that the batteries don't die. Just saying. So they're and to sell, you don't understand. To sell the basics, to sell solid training is very hard. But I've always been willing to travel that rough road of saying, hey, listen, it's all about the fundamentals. It really is all about the fundamentals. If you don't have fundamentals down, you have no business going to any advanced training, no matter what they call it. You have no business shooting a match. You have no business carrying a gun on a daily basis, because it is all about the fundamentals. It all comes down to hits on target at the very least, and that comes down to grip, sights, and trigger. Because if you can't hold the gun correctly, you can't mitigate recoil correctly, because recoil management starts at the grip. Anybody else can tell you whatever they want. I've been doing this a long, long time, and I've done all kinds of things to dispel the myths. Recoil management starts at the grip. Sight alignment and sight picture are not separate fundamentals, because I don't care if you understand how to align the sights. If you don't know how to properly place them on the target, that's a whole nother story. And if you can't press the trigger, you suck, Scott Thornton. If you can't do what I'm asking you to do, you suck. I'm sorry, Scott. Listen, it is all basic. It is all fundamentals. If you can't get past the fear, if you can't press the trigger without disturbing that sight alignment, everything I do training is advanced.
He's quoting you. He puts quotables up.
He's very funny. And I'm seeing these things. And it's funny because I don't always know what I say, but I know exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
So we got grip. Recoil management starts at the grip. We got sights, which encompasses sight alignment, sight picture. There are two things that are one. listen, if you don't know how to place the sights on a target to make the hit, if you want to shoot a pop can, do you know how to shoot the pop can? You don't float the pop can on top of your sights and expect to hit it. You put the sights over the pop can and you hit it. If your gun doesn't do it that way, then figure it out. And then lastly, if you cannot press the trigger without anticipation, fear, or movement in the gun, you will never truly know what your gun is capable of, nor will you know what you're capable of. And you can never carry confidently, nor can you make a confident hostage shot, or can you fire a gun in public without being confident and competent in your skills.
So you're saying if you aren't competent in your skills, then figure out how to get that way as quickly as possible.
And it doesn't take long.
And most importantly, be honest with where you are. I think a lot of people aren't honest about that. Wouldn't you say?
No, it's an absolute fact.
Yeah.
It's an absolute fact because a lot of people come to class, and I can't say that I wasn't one of these guys a long time ago. People come to class and they sit there and they listen until you make them shoot or take a test of shooting. They sit there and they think to themselves, let me show you what I'm capable of. Let me show you what I can do. And honestly, with the minimal amount of training I can provide them in a short period of time, I can make them better than what they think they can show me. But they don't listen until I prove them wrong. There are a lot of shooters out there. There's a lot of shooters out there. People that know how to shoot. They know how to discharge firearms in a safe direction. But can you run the gun? Can you make it do your bidding? My statement in all my classes, I say, we run the gun. When I tell you to put the shots in the middle of this piece of paper, the piece of paper that's glued to cardboard, stapled to a stick, and is not moving or shooting back at you, you will put them where I tell you to put them. They say, oh, well, they're over here, and the group just started there, so I just kept shooting there. I asked you to put them in the center of the target. And then they start to do that because they say, well, Chris said that I can do that or I should do that, so they start doing that. So the thing is this. When that target goes mobile and starts shooting back at you, you will wish to God that you could place your shots where you wanted them. Because even I cannot do that every time on demand. So you'll wish
and be willing to do the work required to get there because it's that important. Is that what you're getting at?
No, it's not that much work. That's what people don't understand. They keep
Well,
talking
for
about
some people it is.
skill. It's not that
But
perishable.
you're Chris Cerino. It's easy for you.
Well, I have to tell you that I have so many emails continually over years and years and years, 10, 20, 15 years. People email me about their qualifications or things they've done or shootings they've been in. And they remember what I told them and how easy it can be. And it blows me away that we're always looking for flavor of the day. What is the next easiest way I can learn to put hits on target? And it hurts my heart. And I'm passionate about it. And I'm unapologetic.
Well, that's why we like you, Chris. Okay. Prescott, what made your wife laugh? I want to know. Because there's been many moments tonight that are laughable.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Prescott's already got another person out there thinking this guy's nuts.
Oh, I'm sure plenty of people think I'm crazy, so it's no big deal. All right, so here, one more thing I want to touch on, and then I want to get into some of your experiences in your life, and not law enforcement involved or training involved. And before we leave with this self-defense category here that we're talking about, can you pinpoint a few key ways that you would tell someone this is the best way that you can prepare for something unexpected in terms of self-defense? And I know we're not in check boxes or whatever, but are there a few key things that come to mind that where can people start just so that they can navigate this and prepare themselves as best they can as far as self-defense is concerned?
Well, the body will not go where the mind hasn't been.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't thought it, you can't react to it appropriately. One of the things you can do is, and I'm sure Adam will agree, the stuff we do with first person defender is neat. However, YouTube is packed with case after case of things that have happened. And life is quite often more strange than fiction. So you see these things, these weird things that happen, and you have to think, oh my God, what would I do? What would I do?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're there, Clayton Wilcox, you're such a good dude. Anyways,
Squirrel.
if you can put yourself in that place, and it's not, if this happens, then I'm going to do that. It's when this happens, then I'm going to do that. If you haven't thought about running somebody over with your car who's a deadly threat to you, then you're probably not going to do that. If you haven't thought about what happens when you run over somebody with your car when they're a deadly threat, then you're also unprepared because you absolutely might have an airbag go off. So you have to think about the craziest things. And people think that you're crazy when you say this stuff. Like if you don't go into a place and think, how can I kill the most people here today? How can I come in here and create the most devastation, the most havoc, the most chaos, the most death and destruction? Then you're not prepared. So those are, the body is not going to go where the mind hasn't been. The opposite of that, and here comes Adam, the street is a poor place to improvise. The street is not where you're going to come up with your best idea. It's not where you're going to all of a sudden magically shoot from some urban prone fetal position underneath a car or underneath something and think, man, that worked. I just pulled that out of my rear end. Training is great. Surrounding yourself with like-minded people is great. Having a solid foundation in the fundamentals, understanding your gun. Beware the man with one gun. He probably knows how to use it. That's my biggest nemesis, is because I shoot so many different guns because of what I do in TV. I shoot everything all the time, and I do carry one gun, but I shoot everything that comes across the desk. So I have that going against me, but I also know that in the absence of everything else, practice, proficiency, time on task, I do know that if I put sights on target and I press the trigger without fear or anticipation, I'm probably going to get a hit. So all those things are really important, and I'm going to let Adam talk now.
Adam's got something to say.
I know he does.
So first of all, if you haven't looked up Range Ready and you haven't gone to First Person Defender, you should do it. For those of you watching tonight, I mean, people like myself have been on there, Brian Hill, and others that you might know. And of course, Chris is there all the time, so it's phenomenal. Secondly, Chris, you brought up the fact that if you haven't gone into a restaurant and thought about how can I kill the most people here or cause the most damage possible here, I think that's an important component of training, right? Or not really of training, but of being prepared, right? And another component to that, beyond what you just said, was the mere fact that you've got to think like the bad guy, right? If bad guys coming in, you've got to be able to pre-see ahead of time what most likely could happen in that case if Mr. Dirtbag decides to come in and they want to shoot up your church, your movie theater, your mall, your restaurant, wherever you are, the local Stop and Rob you're at. So part of that of how could I do this, right, is also how would I, if I was a bad guy, didn't do this too. So therefore, if you can see that, how would you do it and how would bad people do it? You can also begin to pre-see how you would respond if Mr. Dirtbag does show up and decides to ruin everybody's day, and you got to take him out. So I think that's a really, really necessary component of, as you described, Chris, the if-then, or as I kind of call it, the if-when. If this happens, or when this happens, then I'm going to do that. When this happens, then I'm going to do that. And such a needed component. I'm so glad you brought this up.
Yeah, and I'm glad you clarified what it meant too, Adam. That's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, when then? Because everywhere I'm at, I mean, I was in hospitals all day today. And one of the things I had to go for was 4 hours. And it was one where I absolutely couldn't take my gun. I obviously could have taken a knife, but I committed myself to not doing any of those things. I was going to do what was done. I didn't want to have to explain myself. I didn't want to have to freaking lay a gun on the table and say, hey, listen, here's my story. Because clearly it states there's no guns allowed in there. I mean, you have to think like a criminal to defeat criminals. That's why I was a good cop, because I knew where they were coming from. I knew what they were going to say to me. I knew what their lines were. And then when they look in your eyes and they see that you know what
know
they're
that they
saying,
know.
you
They know that
understand
you
that
know.
they're full of crap. You understand. They look at you and they say, all right, let me level with you. I mean, you know it. You've been there.
Well, you're definitely right on. I don't want to take over this, but I thought that was so important to bring up. I just,
You don't
dude,
have
I'm
to
glad
take
you
over anything. I've talked more than enough. When you said that first person offender is great and all these guys have been on there, but Chris is always there, that's the problem with first person offender. I'm always there. Nobody wants to always hear me. Nobody wants to always see me. And when you
Or
were there,
me.
you are so smart and you're so thoughtful and you think about things that I haven't thought about. And when I worked with you, I was just so excited the fact that I could be with someone who was also thinking about things in the same way, but different. Because different doesn't mean wrong.
No.
Different is not wrong. I was a field training officer. When you're training cops, just because this young cop doesn't do things the way you would do it, doesn't mean it's wrong. You know, when my girlfriend's in the kitchen and she's doing stuff, and I have to think to myself, that's wrong. No, it's not. It's different. It's different, and you have to say, okay, just let it ride, because it's going to be fine.
This is a good segue, Chris, from where I was going to go next.
Hey, I'll get out. See ya.
I'm sure he'll pop back in later. Yeah, he'll pop back in later. Okay, so all right. So we got some good tips from a practical perspective about self-defense, but you've had some things in your life, some major unexpected curveballs in your personal life, and you've already told me nothing's off limits. So I'm going to go there. So, we're talking about preparing for the unexpected from a self-defense standpoint. Now I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about a couple of things that you mentioned yesterday. And I am going to wrap this up as quick as I can here. So guys, if you have questions for Chris, please put those in the comments before we get done here so that he can answer those for you. So one thing I learned about you that you said nonchalantly over the phone yesterday, which I thought was quite interesting, was that you've had cancer twice. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first time they didn't take care of it properly. The second time it had metastasized to stage 4, and I was on the verge of dying, but I made it through. It was difficult.
I mean, you just say that like it's no big deal. I mean, you can't tell me that it is no big deal.
Right, because you deal with what's dealt to you. Life, and I don't know if I told you this, but everyone can hear it. Life is like tomorrow is a new stage at the match, and there is no walkthrough. There is no preparation. Whatever they lay forth for you, you will need to deal with it. If you don't have that within you, if you don't have the skill set within you, and that means courage, compassion, common sense, if you don't have some level of training, then yes, tomorrow's stage is going to be an absolute shit show. And there you have it. I said my first bad word. Tomorrow
that was not the first one, Chris. I guarantee it.
I mean, but you have to be able to move forward in the face of adversity, no matter what happens. You know, the cancer thing was a huge. He's so funny. The cancer thing was a huge curveball, and it was no doubt the beginning of the end of my marriage. But it was ugly. It was ugly for me physically, it was ugly for us emotionally, it was ugly for everyone around, but you deal with it and you do the best that you can. I mean, in the end, I really thought that I was going to die, and I was praying that I would. I'm glad I didn't now, but
Me too.
different things happen. You don't know what's going to happen. You either have the strength to deal with it or you don't. And if you don't, you need to have a good circle of friends. Now, I happen to have an absolute shit ton of strength and power. I have a tremendous amount of strength and power. I don't know why, because that was not me growing up. But aside from that, I have an unbelievable amount, and the most amazing support group of friends around me all the time, across the country and the world. And it is remarkable. It is remarkable. And they don't have to be religious. They don't have to be spiritual. They don't have to be anything. But what they have to be is in your corner, and they have to send you that power and that positive energy. And that's what I try to do for friends of mine that are in tough places. I try to tell them that I'm sending you my power and strength because I have so much that I can share. And I don't mean that in a cocky way. I just mean that I'm strong. There's very little that can break me. And I've been close. Hell, if you think I haven't thought about starting a 12 gauge shotgun during the divorce, you'd be wrong. You'd be wrong as, two fellas holding hands in the rain. I just, I believe that, people support us, and we're fortunate to have what we have, and you will reap what you sow. And I know that I haven't always been perfect, and I haven't always been good to everyone. But I'm thankful for everything in my life. And I'm glad to be here and be able to share it with people that can hopefully be inspired by it, because that's part of my training also, is to be strong, to be strong-willed, and to always move forward.
Was there ever a moment in any of this, whether it's in your law enforcement career or through the cancer or the divorce, that a moment that you remember that you were one way before that moment and you were another way after that moment, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I shot myself, I was shot once in training, and then I shot myself, and I can't imagine what my ego might have been like if that hadn't happened.
Really?
When my house burned down, I can't imagine what my life would have been like, thinking that nothing bad happens to me. Look at me, I'm blessed. I just keep moving forward. I can shit under the snow and no one's ever going to know. When the house burned down, that was the most devastating thing in my life. To watch your own children pick through their things, and then to try to get them something new to replace it, and them to look at you and say, "We don't have money for that right now, Dad. We can't do that." It's enough to, well, it's not enough to. It absolutely brings a man to his knees. And if that stuff doesn't change you for the better, then you truly are an animal and you're not human.
Do you believe, though, that you have a choice in that moment, though? I mean, is that a conscious choice that you make?
To be
Because you
better
could
afterwards?
go either way.
To be better
Yeah,
after
because
the event?
you could just be mad at the world. Yeah,
No.
you could choose to be mad at the world for the rest of your life, or you could choose to move forward. And you see what I'm saying, though? You see where I'm going with that?
Listen, I'm still mad about a lot of things. I'm still mad about the divorce and 51 years of life being transitioned to something that is absolutely new now, these last two. But I get through every day and it never stops me from moving forward. I just think to myself, God wouldn't want you to think like that. God doesn't appreciate those thoughts. God didn't keep you around to be a dickhead. God didn't, and you don't have to believe in God, but you can believe in whatever you want. But karma truly is a bitch. And if you think that you don't reap what you sow, you're going to find out sooner or later. Although I think that some people really get lucky in life. And it doesn't affect everyone the same. But as long as you know in your heart that you're doing the right thing, that's important. And that's part of being a defender and carrying a gun and being trained and having your flashlight and your knife and your cell phone and being prepared with the gear that you carry to do the right thing in the right time. Because, man, when it comes time to do it and you've done it, you're really going to hope and you're really going to question yourself if you did the right thing. And the only way you're ever going to live with yourself and move forward is by knowing you did the right thing.
Well said.
Wow, I just put a damper on everything, didn't I?
No. I took us there. I opened the door, you walked through it. Just a couple things wrapping up here. I want to know, what is the next chapter for Chris Cerino, and what do you hope to leave as your legacy?
Well, my next chapter has begun. This is my chapter. What I'm doing here in Louisiana with Range Ready Studios, I have three fine young men that I treat like sons that I'm mentoring right now, because I'm not an instructor, I'm a mentor. Because people will do what you do, and that's not an instructor, that's a mentor. And I am just enamored with these fine young men. They're like in their middle 20s, high 20s. That is part of my legacy, because when I left Ohio, I left all my people that I worked with. I left a lot behind. But I'm on a bigger stage now. I have, of course, Gun Talk TV, Gun Talk Media behind me as a backer, which is good. My legacy is that I will have always unwaveringly preached the fundamentals and solid foundations for skills. There probably isn't a next chapter in my life. This is it until I'm fired or I quit. I don't plan on quitting anytime soon. Ryan says that I'm an HR nightmare, but we don't have HR, so it doesn't matter. Because even my father was a man who spoke without worry of repercussion. And I've always been the same way. It always hasn't worked out for me, and that's okay. But I will always be true to myself, true to my teachings. And my biggest thing is to develop relationships and continue forward, because happiness, good skill, truth is contagious.
Well, I think that's a good way to round out the show. If anyone wants to check out what Chris is up to, they can go to guntalk.com or rangereadystudios.com. Am I right, Chris?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I don't think there's any better way to leave the interview than with that. I think that was beautifully said, and you've given quite a bit of your time tonight, and I just want to say thank you so much for your time, for sharing your stories with us, and not holding anything back. I appreciate that about you.
People either love it or hate it, and there's very few that hate it. There's more that love it, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for your time tonight, Chris.
You bet.
All right, guys. So Couple things before we wrap up tonight. That was such a good interview. I so enjoyed that. Please put in the comments. Tell me what you thought of that interview. I think there might have been a question. I forgot it already. I'm sorry, Adam. I messed up. I should have went to the Q&A. I don't think there were any questions, except I think Adam had one. Anyway, it's live. Just keep rolling with it, right? So couple of things. We're going to get into what to expect for next week. But first, I want to thank all of you guys who have become paid supporters of the Defenders Live community on locals.com. That is the place to go for the Defenders Uncensored series. So the Defenders Uncensored series is a place where you can go to find some interesting content that you won't find where you're watching right now, because honestly, we'd probably get kicked off these platforms that we're on right now. We talk about lots of issues and lots of truth and some things that are considered controversial, and we don't think they should be. So we go there to have our roundtable discussions. We just dropped episode 5, and the title of that Defenders Uncensored episode is called Saying It Out Loud. So if you want to go check that out, you can go over to locals.com, go to the Discover tab, and search up Defenders Live, and that's where you'll find the Defenders Uncensored series. I'm also going to be hosting a series of deep dive interviews with some really amazing women that I know in my life that I love to share that interview with you. But again, it'll be a little bit more of a deep dive than what I do regularly on this channel. So I encourage you to go check that out on locals.com. And as far as next week goes, it's a little bit up in the air. There's a good chance that Adam Winch will be hosting next week. We'll see. I'm not sure if that's going to pan out or not, but it's going to be kind of a, I can't think of the word, wild card. Maybe that's what I was thinking. Going to be a wild card episode next week. So either me or Adam Winch will be hosting it. And if you're on that email list on defenders-live.com, if you signed up for the email notifications, then you will get an email next week letting you know what to expect. So stay tuned for that. See what's in store. I'll be probably just as surprised as you are. And I can't wait to see you next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Until then, take care.